Hello, I'm Wolfman Jeff. Today I'm going to be reviewing the reboot of Star Trek. The one J.J. Abrams did a few years back. I know it's not the most relevant of movies, but I love this movie, and there's a few reasons why I love it, which I'm going to talk about, and it's definitely a must-see with me, and for anyone, really. And it's just a fun movie. I like Star Trek. I like Star Trek, the original series with William Shatner. I like The Next Generation with Patrick Stewart. I like Deep Space Nine with Avery Brooks, Voyager, Enterprise. I liked all the movies. I'm a Star Trek guy. I'm a nerd. But this movie, I really felt like it was accessible to everyone. And that's what uh, I really enjoyed about it, and I really appreciated about it, because at least to me, and I was a fan of all the TV series before this movie came along, and when they announced this and they announced the cast, I dreaded it. I mean, they had like Simon Pegg they announced as Scotty, and I'd seen him in Hot Fuzz, and Carl Urban they announced as McCoy, and he was a New Zealander. He had been in Lord of the Rings, but I hadn't really, I hadn't really seen a lot he was in besides from the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Uh, and some of the other, I did like Zachary Quinto as Spock, but a lot of the other ones, I was Chris Pine. I think the only thing I'd recognize him from was a Lindsay Lohan movie I never watched. So there wasn't a big excitement level as far as the cast. And at that point, J.J. Abrams had just basically only directed like the pilot for Lost and Mission Impossible 3. Those were his big uh, things that were on his resume. And I like Lost, and I like the pilot from it. I liked Mission Impossible 3, but there wasn't a lot to get me too hyped up about this. But I went to see it, and to be honest, when I first went to see it in the theaters, I didn't really know how to feel. I mean, because I enjoyed it, but it was a major departure from what I kind of expected. But that being said, it wasn't necessarily a bad departure, and it was something that probably needed to be done. And when I got out of the theater, I kind of was able to think about it, and I enjoyed it when I watched it. But there was part of me that was like, did I really like it, or was it the action scenes that kind of? Because I mean, I'm a guy. I see action scenes sometimes, and they get you excited, but it doesn't necessarily mean the movie's great or it holds up. So when I got out of the theater, I was like, I gotta really think about this, because I don't really know if this was as good a film as I maybe initially felt. So, going out of the theater though, giving some time to think about it, you know, it was it was borderline genius. I mean, it's one of the few movies that you can honestly say is a prequel, it's a sequel, and a reboot all in one. And part of the reason it's a little more relevant and why I'm doing a review is they're starting to follow that formula a little more. Terminator Genesis is going to be a sequel, prequel, reboot. And it's a way of kind of rebooting the franchise while still kind of catering to fans. And to be honest, I don't know if it's going to work that well. This movie, it's a miracle it worked with. It did work. It worked extremely well. But it's definitely not a thing a lot of movies I think could pull off. So I'm kind of interested to see how this new fad lasts. It's interesting. I mean, in this movie, it worked really well. It was a good way to include, like, a new cast while still having Leonard Nimoy, introducing an alternate timeline so they can have villains and things that happen in future sequels. But nothing is certain. You know, your favorite character could die in a sequel. And they kind of play with that a little bit in Star Trek Into Darkness. And I hope to eventually get a review on that, so I'm not going to talk about that much. Uh, that movie was a different experience, and I'll just leave it at that for now. Hopefully one day I'll get around to reviewing it. But as far as this movie is concerned, though, it had enough comedy that it can make you kind of chuckle. I mean, but it didn't, like, drag the movie down. The only time I felt like maybe it was a little too much was when they had Kirk kind of experience complication. I won't ruin it in case you want to watch it if you haven't. I think most people have, and they'll know what I'm talking about, but he has side effects to something. And I think maybe they overdid it a little bit with that, but I mean, that's just one minor, nitpick, I guess. And it's just that it's a nitpick. I mean, I could never have done a movie as good as this, so it's not really a thing I'm faltering. And every movie, no matter how good it is or how much you love it, I'm sure, I mean, there's going to be faults with it if you really want to nitpick, so it's a minor thing. But this new one, this new reboot, it just got pretty much everything right. It looked different. It had completely, a completely different style than any of the other previous Star Trek movies, and it kind of worked. And nothing about it, nothing about it negated any of the previous Star Trek movies. And at the same time, it was able to kind of push forth with its own thing, and it definitely, I think, needed some new life breathed into the franchise. As much as I loved it, and I would be all for them going back to the other films or other timeline, but for now, and I understand they're making a lot of money off this new film franchise, so I don't blame them, but it's a movie I would highly recommend. I think it's a good way to get people into the world of Star Trek. It's a good way to get people interested in even science fiction outside of maybe Star Wars. A lot of people have seen Star Wars, they love that, but they haven't necessarily, seen some of the other classics. And there's classics that I don't love myself, and everyone's got different tastes, but I think this movie will very much entertain pretty much anyone. If you disagree, just let me know. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. This is just my opinion. Thank you very much for watching. Your support, and just any watches you do, anything, everything you guys do means a lot to me, and I very much appreciate it. Thank you very much for listening to me rant on and on. Thank you. Peace.